you may be familiar with Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago. Here's just a little quote of something she said. Our inequalities as a city are rooted in race, class, and gender, and thus our recovery must face this reality and make investments to address and not shy away from these realities. So she is essentially a race, class, and gender socialist. She's talking about redistributing wealth based on these three criteria. I think that's fairly uncontroversial.
And that's a wokist, so...
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And now, she recently came out and said she will only now do one-on-one interviews with black and brown journalists. So...
Right. So, she's literally going to do the Family Guy sketch of pulling out, like, the colour card and seeing if you're okay or not okay to be the interviewer.
Exactly. Like, if you're too white, then you're not going to be able to talk to her, apparently.
Mexicans brown?
I think they're okay.
As in they're brown or they're white?
I think they'll get to interview her.
They get to interview her?
I think it's just excluding white people, really, but saying it in kind of the...
But what if you're
I will only talk to these people.
What if you're half Hispanic, half European? Then what?
I don't know.
Do you get
You'll
to
have to ask her.
Minutes, but not the whole hour? Like, don't your black half can interview me for now, but not the rest of it. Like...
Yeah, you have half the time.
What, 1/8? Like...
What they've got to do is they've got to measure your genetic lineage and how much time you're allocated to talk to Lori Lightfoot.
Like
depends on how much non-European heritage you have.
She's going to give you a 3/5 rule. 3/5 of an interview. God. What an awful woman.
So
What an awful thing to do.
Yeah, of course it's awful. She says, I ran to break up the status quo that was failing so many. That isn't just in City Hall. It's a shame that in 2021, the City Hall press corps is overwhelmingly white in a city where more than half of the city identifies as Black, Latino, AAPI, or Native American. I think the AAPI is, isn't it? Asian American Pacific Islander. I don't understand these. I'm not.
Bloody alphabets, you know. Like, there's a million of them, isn't there?
Yeah. So... She says, diversity and inclusion is imperative across all institutions, including media. In order to progress, we must change. This is exactly why I'm being intentional about prioritising media requests from POC, which is people of colour. Yep. Reporters on the occasion of the 2-year anniversary of my inauguration as mayor of this great city. This imbalance needs to change. Chicago is a world-class city. Our local media should reflect the multiple cultures that comprise it.
So, just Chicago. I mean, internationally, as a foreigner, all it's known for is just mass murder.
And pizza.
I suppose so. Anyway.
So the final thing she says is, we must be intentional about doing better. I believe that when running for office, I stand on this belief now. It is time for newsrooms to do better and build teams that reflect the makeup of our city.
So a few things there. I mean, saying that she wants to break up the status quo, as the chat correctly points out, she is the status quo.
Yeah, she's the mayor.
Like, Democrat-held area for God knows how long. I mean, I don't even have to look it up. I already know. Just looking at American cities. And then it's a shame that in 2021, the City Hall press corps is overwhelmingly white. Why? Why is it a shame? Something wrong with being white? Presumably, because you're not giving them interviews.
She'd get along well with Hamza, wouldn't she?
Yeah, her and Hamza could bond over the hatred of white people. Is Hamza white to her? Because she's browner than Hamza, so is Hamza like... Does she think he's slightly more inferior than her because he's not as brown as her?
Was that some kind of melanin supremacist position?
Yeah, because he's Scottish, so, he's not... He's like proto-white or something, probably what she's going to call him. And then he doesn't get to interview her.
I have no idea what goes on in her head.
Exactly. I mean, this is the mind of a race politician. God.
So there are also people coming out to praise her for her decisions. So there's one tweet here from Ryan Johnson saying, "We applaud Mayor Lightfoot, Chicago's first black female gay mayor, for standing up to the status quo and recognising that granting black media with exclusive interviews is customary in the profession of media coverage." So there's a lot of weird stuff going on there.
Firstly, congratulations.
Stunning and brave.
Compulsory black gay mayor. That's the important I'm sorry, it's just so sad. People.
It always gets shoehorned in as well.
It's so pathetic. Sorry, I've lost it.
So, standing up to the status quo as well, like, again, the mayor, I don't really understand what's going on here. Democrat-run city, more or less. And he also refers to black media as well, as in just, segregate the media into just racial groups.
There's black media and then white media. What happens if they intermix? What if a black guy works at a station that's got white people in as well? What happens then?
I don't know. It's compromised. They can't interview them.
What percentage do you need before it becomes black media?
I would assume 51.
Just 51%. It's black media now.
They are the media now.
What the heck?
Yeah. And he also says exclusive interviews as is customary in the profession of media coverage. So is he just saying that it's, a custom that people give exclusive interviews and therefore you're allowed to pick who has these exclusive interviews?
I mean, it's not customary to do it along racial lines.
No, unless...
in American society.
Depends how far back in the past you go.
John's just saying that she's going to use the one drop rule. So if there's one white guy working at any of these companies, she gives an interview to, the interview's over. She's leaving. Presumably that's how it works.
In the middle of an interview, she finds out that they employ one white person. Like, right.
The camera guy's white. I'm leaving.
So there's one local article from the Chicago Crusader that was in support of...
Sorry, that name.
It's unfortunate, really, isn't it?
Tapping into the pulse of African American community since 1940.
All right. Yeah, it's
Tapping
clearly
into
a
Jerusalem
non-partisan.
by 2025.
So they say Mayor Lightfoot addressed racism in an unprecedented open letter to the press as black media owners with independent outlets. We share her concerns. Too often, when white media coverage is biased and sometimes racist in its depiction of the black community in Chicago, this is a result of the lack of black, brown, and women representation in our newsrooms and in positions of power, which could help shape the narrative. So,
not tell the truth.
Yeah, it's not even not even report on what's happening, but shape the narrative. It's just like, yeah, we have a narrative. We want to push this.
Like the result of black, brown, and women representation on newsrooms and positions of power that can help shape the narrative. Right, so you just want them there to lie. Like, yeah. Okay.
We want our cheerleaders to be the same colour and gender as us.
Nice of you to admit it, but...
Yeah, I'm amazed at how kind of open they were about it, actually. So they say, black media's vantage point is often different than mainstream. Our niches represent authentic voices of diverse black audiences who are often seen with a stereotypical lens. Too often white coverage focuses on violence, deprivation and negative behaviour, which represents a small percentage of Chicago's black community, yet dominates news coverage.
Like everywhere on the planet, negative news coverage is coverage. But now they're doing it to black people in Chicago, and therefore it's racism.
I mean, it's not like Chicago's renowned for gang crime or anything, is it? I mean,
it's
a weird gripe to have, just like, being depicted as violent while all of these gang shootings are going on, mostly peaceful gang shootings. I mean, what are they trying to get at here? In the media is just reporting on the news as it happens.
Yeah, but they need to shape the narrative, Josh.
It makes them look bad.
I love
if they're reporting on all these murders, they need to suppress at least a few of them to kind of equal it out a bit.
Some of them didn't happen. The whole authentic voices, like we need diversity for authentic voices so they can shape the narrative. I mean, the double think involved in writing this.
It's not like just you need to look at what happens. It's you need to shape the narrative. You need to be the right skin colour to shape the narrative. Otherwise, you can't do it, apparently, according to them.
I mean, it's literally how the Nazis would think.
It pretty much is, and it's...
I'm sorry to bring up the Nazis, but it really is that. We need racial propagandists. That's what they're asking for.
It's pretty overt as well. They're not even trying to hide it. They're not saying, tell the truth. They're saying, shape the narrative. I mean, that it's so out in the open, I couldn't really believe it. So anyway, this last part that I wanted to read out is, in an era where the streets are filled with Black Lives Matter marches and issues of social justice and equity are the topics of the day, we hope that diversity and inclusion become a part of every media company, from the boardroom to the street reporters. So it's clear what these so-called journalists want. It's, I just can't get my head around it.
They're
Like,
woke activists.
yeah,
That's all they are. And she's going to give them exclusive media coverage.
it seems like it, yeah.
Exclusive interviews, sorry.
But it's just so transparent that they just want socialism and based on racial gender lines. And I mean, they haven't said it completely explicitly, but it's as explicit as it's going to get there. So another point I'd like to make is that these one-on-one interviews is kind of an unusual thing, considering she has a white wife. So
will
a little
her
bit
white
awkward.
wife
Yeah.
still get one-on-one time? This is ridiculous. No, she's got to bring in a mediator
Yeah,
from the black community to mediate her conversations. Oh, God. I wonder what her wife wakes of this. Like, if she goes home, I'm only interviewing black people now. Should I leave? Should I go to another house?
They just stay in separate rooms at all times.
Yeah, separate but equal. That's progress.
So there was also reporters who were a bit more critical of it. So there's this Latino reporter from the Chicago Tribune that says, "I am a Latino reporter from the Chicago Tribune whose interview request was granted for today. However, I asked the mayor's office to lift its conditions and others when they say no, we respectfully cancelled." What? Lift conditions on others, and when they said no, we respectfully cancelled. Politicians don't get to choose who covers them. Which is a perfectly reasonable...
Yeah, Gregory being a good guy there. Well, I also love the idea that we've got the answer there. He's Latino, as he says. I mean, he looks white to me, but whatever. Americans. And he's called up the office. He says, I want an interview. She's agreed. But I wonder what they write. Like, is she writing next to him, like, Latino, mudblood, still acceptable, or something like that? Like, what's going on there? But she agrees to it, and then he's like, we'll get rid of the racial restrictions. And they're like, no, by then.
Yeah,
like, I don't
good
want to
for him.
A racist candidate. So.
Yeah, well, that's what journalists should be doing. They're saying, well, you're not being open about it, therefore we don't want to interview you then. You're only talking to a specific set of people. And sure, people do that with, say, political candidates that are favourable to them, but then along
not on the
racial
race
lines, yeah, it's
God, could you imagine Trump coming out and being like, I'm only going to be interviewed by whites?
the world would go absolutely insane.
But
We'd never hear the end of it. Yeah. And it just goes by the wayside as well. Like, hardly anyone's really reporting on this. I mean, it kind of got some attention just by how ridiculous it was.
And this is still in
at
effect.
first.
Like, she hasn't walked back on it.
Yeah, she's more than happy to continue with it. So there was a great article by the Babylon Bee, which is fantastic, that says... Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was seen running for her life this afternoon. Observers said that Lightfoot exploded into a frantic sprint after she saw Thomas Sowell approaching to interview her. According to sources, Lightfoot had recently said she would only grant one-on-one interviews with journalists of colour. Moments later, Thomas Sowell crashed through a nearby wall in a fashion reminiscent of the Kool-Aid Man. Lightfoot, living up to her name, went into a mad dash and has not been seen since.
She ran into the corridor and there was Larry Elder as well. It was like, hello. Let's talk about responsibility, huh?
So yeah, obviously this is not a factual article. This is satire, but it makes a good point that even if she does limit things to so-called black and brown people, it's not going to necessarily free her from scrutiny, because not everyone thinks like her, despite what leftists might want to make out. And of course, Thomas Sowell being a great example and someone who very much appreciate, yeah,
as well.
Oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
Intellectually, he's going to be on 10 levels above her.
So, there's another article which was very critical of her as well, which is titled, I think, ironically, "It's okay, Mayor Lightfoot. I don't interview blacks anyway."
Was it a black guy or a white guy that wrote this?
Guessing by his name, Dennis Byrne. I'm guessing.
Could be either.
I mean, I kind of got the impression that it wasn't, but he kind of just had the. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't really think it was that important, because it's more about the content of what he says. I don't look up the colour of people's skin.
All right, I'm not going to tell you the answer to that.
I'm curious now.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
Well, fine. So he says, first, it's so obviously wrong to filter out non-black and non-brown journalists from her interview schedule that it hardly needs commentary. What if I said I wouldn't interview her or other black officials because they're black? Second, her complaint that the press corps is too white seems to be based on the assumption that it is a result of racism of the system of the institutional kind. She doesn't explain how that happens. Here, I will argue that racism is too simplistic of an explanation, which is very true and stuff that people have been saying for such a long time that, you know, everyone's just like, there is some kind of inequality. It is because of racism. And that's it. It's nothing else. It's not like the world is more complicated than just one thing causes something else. Oh, it blows my mind, especially as someone who was taught to be like a data scientist and carry out experiments. You're meant to consider like an innumerate number of variables that could affect something. So this particularly triggers me. Just like, yeah, it's one thing that causes this, just 100%, yeah. But sorry, I'm kind of beating a dead horse here a little bit.
You're right.
He says, in my 4+ decades in the Chicago news business, I have never encountered a publisher or editor who refuses to hire journalists because of their race. Quite to the contrary, for decades they made special effort to find and hire qualified black men and women, and they did it because they believed it was the right thing to do. Which is true. I mean, lots of companies would probably have affirmative action policies in place that would provide special privileges in hiring rights for people who are minorities, I would assume. And he says, newspaper bosses I knew were anxious to increase readership in the black communities. They wanted more coverage of the black communities. They hired blacks with that in mind until some black reporters rightfully complained that they wanted to cover other things just like everyone else. Which seems like a very reasonable point in that if they're hired for the sake of diversity and they're like, well, you are black and you're going to cover all the black news, they're going to get a bit bored of that. It's a bit demeaning, funnily enough, like I have to even point it out. Just like, yeah, you only cover the news that is relevant to the colour of your skin.
Imagine being hired as a man and they're like, yeah, you write man news, nothing else. I heard anything that's not explicitly male.
I mean, you're already selling it to me now.
Well, you'd subscribe to that magazine, would you? Yeah.
I'd review whiskey and...
I see the
like
chat's
that.
also mentioning Asians. That's a good point. I mean, they're not black or brown. So, when do they come into this?
I don't know.
They're super white, as John points out. So.
Yeah, I think they get lumped into the white category now.
Yeah, but they're better than whites, so... so they're super whites.
That's fair enough. I grant them that privilege.
No, you're not saying the progressives have done that.
No.
You know, see, I remember they're back with like, loads of universities and also like the Democratic Party now, basically of the opinion that Asians do well in society, therefore they're basically white because they need to be oppressors now that they're on the top. So we just declare them white.
So it's not even that white is determined by like skin pigmentation anymore. It's just how successful are you?
Yes.
If you are successful, you are white.
I mean, it's literally, the Marxist view of like, the bourgeoisie who are rich. And it's like, yeah, no one believes any of that crap anymore. What if we just say race instead? Like, everyone who's rich is white now. Obama, white.
I was just about to say that.
Oprah, white. I'm going to do a Hamza Yusuf in a minute.
So the final thing I thought worth mentioning from this article, which is very good, is I'll be told that I didn't see the systematic racism in the news because it was hidden, but that's a circular argument amounting to, we know there is systematic racism because it's hidden because systematic racism isn't out in the open. Even hidden phenomena requires proof of their existence. So this is great. So clearly there is some rational local news still going on in Chicago. Well done, first of all. You haven't been purged from the city yet, but this is definitely worth checking out if you're interested. So the next thing I quickly like to go over is, I know you love cringe, and while I was looking at stuff, I just noticed how there are some horrendous attempts at memes on Lori Lightfoot's Instagram.
This is her Instagram account.
Yeah.
I just want to mention, I've just thought of one other thing. Right, say you're a white reporter in Chicago. Right now, if you're listening, send this to someone if you know someone in Chicago who does reporting. Call up her office, say you're black, get her to come down to the room, and then when she walks in, sit there as a white guy, have the cameras rolling, and watch her walk out. Film that and release it. Perfect, go and do it. Anyway.
That's a good idea, yeah. So, here it has a picture of Lori Lightfoot, and it says, your jump shot is always going to be weak, stay out of the parks.
What?
So it's a COVID lockdown thing, it's like the stay-at-home order, but she's talking about, you're always going to be bad at basketball, so just stay out of the parks. It's just like, oh, right, okay.
This is a bit crude, but it's not just me. She kind of looks like a fish, right? Like her eyes kind of pop out.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but yeah. Yes.
Anyway, moving on.
Thanks for that. Insightful comment.
High-level commentary from the left. Just don't have faith. I don't know. It's just weird. Anyway.
So the next one.
The racism's worse.
Yeah. Friends don't give friends COVID-19. They give Netflix passwords. Stay home. And there she is, just looking smug with her hands there, just like, yeah. And then in the caption there, in case you're wondering, my password is stay home, save lives, don't get me locked out.
Is this run by her?
Yeah, I think so.
I suppose no one else is this cringe, so... Oh, God.
So the next one is, okay, fine, you don't have to wear pants, but you do have to stay home, and please close the shades. I don't even get that, like... What's she even getting at?
Just, why are you posting this? Like, so why are you showing me this?
I know. I'm sorry. There's only 2 more left. I just wanted to subject you to some cringe while Carl is away.
There. More cringe than goddamn Dr. Fauci.
I had that stuck in my head this morning. It's
good.
It's revenge. So there's another one about the census where it has a little caption at the top saying them. Mayor, according to the census numbers, there's only 5,000 people living in Chicago. Me. Stop playing with me. Fill out the census. And it's just her looking kind of sad. It's just really bad memes. And then there's another census one as well. If we move on to that one. Oh. The census takes 10 minutes. You spend 10 times that making memes of me.
I don't think this takes much time.
No.
God.
I'm sorry I had to subject you to this.
Yeah, that's some high quality cringe there, or high quality campaigning, I guess.
It wasn't relevant to anything really.
It's just so cringe. I mean,
it just had to be shared.
This is a real account. It's verified. This is the mayor of Chicago. This is her campaigning on social media by making cringe. I mean, I guess it's sort of like, bait posting, where you make it so bad that it's going to get shared. But, I mean...
I did think that, actually, that it's just so cringy that it has to be shared around. Well, I mean, I've fallen for it. I'm here talking about it right now.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.